G'day guys, I'm just about to run you through the tackle I use for Longtail Tuna off the rocks because I've had a few people asking you about it and I'll do that in a sec. But just come this way. I just want to show you one of the, I was going to say drawbacks, but one of the fun things about living in Australia is this. Don't mind the chook there.
Hello.
That's Ray and Ray, Arturo,
Chapo
and Conrado. They're all named after Mexican drug lords. Anyway, walk this way.
I think they watched that series already. El Chapo. Oh God, I hate this.
So, where are you? So one of the things about living in Australia, especially when you have chickens around, usually it's more of a thing that happens in summer.
No.
This is actually middle of winter, and I'm worried about my chickens. And this old mate's wrapped up in here pretty good.
Strong, huh?
Yeah, they're strong. It's actually not a poisonous snake, this one. It's we call a common name is a carpet snake or a diamond python, but they do love eating birds.
And chicken.
And chickens.
Right here. Hello.
Wrapped up pretty good. Come on, mate. It's around my gas tank. No, we don't hurt them here. We just relocate this one up into the bush on it. It's not sand. We used to have one here that lived in our roof called sand. Is it her?
It's not her in her.
I don't think it is. Anyway,
hello.
That's what you call
We're going someplace else.
Diamond python or carpet snake. They're actually quite a pretty snake when you have a look at that. But they love these guys.
Hello. Want to say hi to your friend?
That's why it's hanging around. So I'm going to put this guy in the box. We'll drive him up into the hills and let it go again. And after that, we'll get down to business with some longtail tuna tackle and techniques for you guys. Welcome to Australia. Don't mind me guys, I'm like a kid with a brand new bloody train set at Christmas with all my fishing rods laid out here in front of me. A bit of trick photography, I've got a haircut since you just saw the snake. But I'm back as promised and I'm going to give you a rundown because a lot of people have written to me and asked for a rundown on the tackle and rigs I use for my longtail tuna fishing off the rocks specifically. So before I start, I was going to say there's no hard and fast rules with tackle for longtails off the rocks. You can use pretty much anything. In fact, lately I've been trying to get one on a snapper rod just for a bit of entertainment. Plenty of blokes do. They have a habit of turning up when you're snapper fishing, when you're mackerel fishing, all this type of stuff. So you got to make do with what you got at the time. But if you're going to target them specifically, there are certain setups within different price ranges which are pretty effective at getting longtails off the rocks. Here's a sort of a selection of the rods that I use. Like I said, I'm a little bit contrarian. I mentioned this in a previous episode when I actually had a fish on. I use pretty short rods off the rocks. I tend to find them better when you're actually fighting a fish. You got a lot more control. When you're fishing solo and you're not using a gaff, they're miles ahead of using a long rod in terms of your ability to then wash a fish up, handle the rod with one hand, grab your leader and grab a fish with the other. I know a lot of guys that do a lot of LBG fishing tend to use longer rods, but like I said, no hard and fast rules. This is just what works for me. So I'll just give you an idea on some of the setups that I've got here. As I mentioned, you don't need to fork out a truckload of bucks to get you into some good fish off the rocks. This one here is actually one of my old faithfuls, tried and tested rig that's put many of the fish on the stones. It's the humble TLD15, Shimano TLD15. I have got 8 kilo mono on this one. It's platypus pre-test I usually use if I'm using mono off the rocks. I just find the abrasion resistance for that is really good. I've paired it with an ugly stick and you'll see, I actually quite like the ugly sticks off the rocks. This one is just it's a 10 to 15 kilo. It's actually a boat rod, but like I said, I use them short off the rocks because I find them much better to stick it to a fish. One thing about longtails, If you haven't hooked one, you'll soon find out is they open their account with a screaming run, usually. They'll dump a lot of line on you, particularly if you tail wrap one, and then they will start this long arcing fight back to the rocks. So you got to have a rod that can put hurt on those fish, because if you rest up, they'll rest up, and it just ends up with a protracted fight. But also with short rods, you've got that out of control when they're in the washes and getting close to the rocks. So this is one of the rods that I kind of first started using way back in the day. I think I got my first one in 1985 or something like that. Two of my mates from school by the name of Keith Bobbin and Andrew Turble actually taught me how to catch longtails, and that was back in the mid 80s. So I've been doing it for a little while. And I think I first started on a reel like this, like a humble old TLD 15. Partnered with 8 kilo mono, and just a relatively cheap ugly stick. As I mentioned, the ugly sticks are great off the rocks because you can absolutely bash the hell out of them, and they're just built for it. Graphite sticks, I've exploded a few of them on the rocks. They just can't really cut it, and in the fury of a fight, you're not sort of really thinking about rod care, and graphite rods just are gone like that. If you're starting out catching longtails, I'd probably suggest going up a little bit in line class size. So this is another one that I use. Again, it's a TLD 20, this one, and there's another size up, the TLD 25, either of which are really good. I fished 10 kilo off this. Again, mono, platypus pre-test, and again, it's a Shimano rod. This is one of the Tagum series. It's a 10 kilo stand-up stick. Again, it's basically a boat rod length. Nothing fancy about these outfits, and they won't break your bank if you want to get one, which will get you into some land-based game fish. And particularly on this one, this 10 kilo stick, you can pretty much stop anything you'll get off the rocks on the north coast ledges here. If you're down south off the tubes at Jarvis Bay and you hook a 100 kilo marlin, might be a little bit of trouble. But certainly anything around here and the ledges around in Foster and up the coast and what have you, the only thing that's going to give you any kind of concern would be, an XOS cobia or something like that. But even still, 10 kilo line, if you've got enough of it, you'll more than handle it. If you want to go up in terms of quality, I also use this outfit. You would have seen in a few of the episodes back. This one's a Shimano Talica. This one's a Talica 12. I also use a 10 every now and then. Again, I just paired it with an ugly stick, an 8 to 10 kilo stick. All my rods are sort of in that weight range because I find them flexible in terms of whether you want to use mono or you want to use braid. That kind of line class rating to a rod is pretty effective. On this one, I've got 30-pound braid. I like this multicolour stuff because when a big tuna unloads on you on that opening run, it changes colour faster than Michael Jackson, so it's pretty spectacular to watch. Again, that's going up a little bit in terms of quality and cost for the reel, but they're a superb reel. I would guess, and would say their only drawback of the rocks is being metal. They're heavy and they're prone to scratching, so you've got to really always be mindful about how you're putting them down on the rocks, because this one's showing some battle damage already, and I haven't had that long. Whereas the TLDs, you can throw them around, and they love getting bashed up. The other thing, I've also got some fish on this one. This doubles as a bit of a spin stick, so I can throw metals off this, I can throw stick baits, throw plastics off it if I want to. It's a threadline outfit, obviously, and it's an ugly stick blue water series rod. Again, it's a 10 to 15 kilo rated, but I've got added length in this, obviously then, because I use it for casting metals and what have you. I've paired that with a Saragossa 10,000, and I've got 10 kilo mono, Andy Pink on this one. I just find Andy Pink tends to cast a little bit better. But again, you can use that for live baiting if you want, but it's just a spin outfit that I usually have on hand in case longtails or big macs or something are blowing up on the surface. I always have a metal rigged up. One word of advice, if you're off the rocks, always have a metal lure rigged up, because if tuna blow up, you can just pop a lure straight in the nose, like I've done in this video. They are everywhere. Have to. Yep, there we go, straight into it. Woo! So you'll see that, I guess one of the fundamental recurring themes across all these outfits is line capacity. You'll see from watching some of my episodes that some tuna can really take a lot of line on that first run. Even the humble Mac tuna can take a lot of line on that first run, like this fish did. Yeah, good fish. Oh, that's a good fish. Look at that. So you see, you really need that amount of line on your reels, just in case you do hook one of those fish that's been on the steroids all night, partying it up, and it's really fired up when you set the hooks into him and wants to take a lot of line on you. In terms of the actual rigs that I use, absolutely nothing fancy here. So you've seen that I run braids or monos. My preference usually is to run mono off the rocks. Reason being, I think it's got better abrasion resistance. I think it's certainly got better visibility. I think you get better drifts using mono. When it comes to catching tuna off the rocks, drift is critical. They will come in and eat bait. I've had plenty of fish come in and take baits at my feet. I've had plenty of fish come in through the whitewater and take baits. But the general rule is the further out you can get your drift, the more likelihood you're going to get a tuna to take your bait. I use leaders, obviously. If fish are finicky and I'm struggling to get hits, I'll go down to a 30-pound leader. I used to use Black Magic leader a lot, but I've since changed to fluorocarbons. I'm now using FC Rock pretty much exclusively for off the rocks. I just find transparency in FC Rock is fantastic. The abrasion resistance is great. It's a lot tougher than Black Magic. It's stiffer, so it's a little bit harder to tie your knots with, but the trade-off is that you get a lot more toughness, which is exactly what you need when you're fishing the rocks, just because of the environment that you're fishing in. So like I said, I'll go down to 30. My usual size leaders that I use is 40 pound. So I know some guys go up to 60 and 80 pound leaders, but honestly for longtails, you do not need that line class to control them. And you would have seen from a lot of my episodes, I actually wash my fish up. So if there was a situation that called for a heavy leader, it would be that. And I'm doing all that on 40 pound leaders. You just got to learn how to use waves and the fish's sort of body weight against it to put them on the rocks if you don't have a gaff guide with you. But in any case, I think 40 pound is more than sufficient. From there, I'm using 2 to 3 rod lengths of leader. For knots, look, there's any number of knots out there you can use. If I'm using mono to fluorocarbon or mono to mono, I'm using double and Albright knots. My braid to fluorocarbon, I usually either use double unis or the good old FG, but I hate tying FGs out in the rocks in wind and stuff like that. It's not my thing. So generally, night before I'll tie FGs, and then if something happens on the rocks and I've got to retie a leader, I'll just do double unis. And to be honest with you, I've never had a knot pop, so I don't think that's down to my superiority as a knot tyer. I just think that both of them are pretty effective knots, and I haven't had any of them fail, touch wood. So, and then hook wise, I'm just using a 5.0 Suicide. This one's a Gammon Cat's a chemically sharpened hook. The only other consideration when you're live baiting off the rocks, there's 2 types of float sort of systems you can use. Now, I know there's some debate around this, but this is just what I do. A lot of guys use these, bobby corks. I personally don't like them, but I will use them. I know there's an environmental rationale for using these, and I get it, and I do try to do it. But like I said before, drift is everything when you're fishing for a longtail off the rocks. And these things are pretty much useless for getting really good drifts. And they also have this problem that when a fish strikes, there's a lot of resistance there. And if they are spooky fish, that will sometimes pull the bait out or cause them to spit it if they feel that resistance. So when you rig up your bobby corks, as with balloons, you only need 3 to 4 feet of depth. So just set your stopper at around 3 to 4 feet. Tuna are a surface feeder, that's why I always see them bust up. That sight we all know and love. So there's no need to put your baits down too deep at all. You want to get a drift and you want to get your bait in that strike zone and keep it there for longer, then the balloons are the way to go. A couple of considerations when you're using balloons for longtail tuna. Don't blow them up very much. Don't even need to partially inflate them. No one's got a hole in it, so I'm not doing that one. Right, we're in business. I'll tell you about yellow balloons in a minute. Okay, so partially inflate them. Put a little bit of water in them first. You just want to partially inflate them. Look, I go about that big, that's it. What do you do? Big tough stabby dog, look at that. Right, so partially inflating it. Now, to attach that to your main line, I get just some 4 pound or 2 kilo mono, and I get about a foot of it, break that off, and then you're just tying that, just using granny knots, and then I'm doing my leader dog. Right. So then grab your leader, go to where you want your depth to be set, so like I said, 3 or 4 feet, and then you've got your blue which is tied off and it's got about a foot or so of 4 pound, and then you just wrap the 4 pound around your main line 5 or 6 times, like that. Again, just bring it back around itself and just do another couple of granny knots there. So then what you end up with is your balloon attached to your main line like this. And it's only attached by 4 pound. So that'll sit on the surface like that. Your bait will be suspended, obviously. Same system as a bobby cork. When a tuna comes along, hits it that hard and fast generally that your balloon pops off. This is where the greenies kick in. So you're using biodegradables, and then that probably mitigates that argument to a degree. And then hallelujah, you hooked up to your first longtail, or one of many, because I guarantee you that once you get one off the rocks, you'll be back for more. They're bloody good fun. I think in terms of tackle and outfits, that's really about all there is to it. You can obviously go up and spend a lot more money, but I don't think you need to do that to have a lot of fun off the rocks chasing longtails. And certainly if you're just starting out, stay cheap. And in many ways, these cheaper outfits are actually far more durable and purpose built for land-based game fishing off the rocks. When you get a few fish, you find you like it, then by all means spend a bit more money. But seriously, to start out, just keep it cheap and simple. Seems to always work best. So, look, any comments or questions about that and the rigs and techniques I use, please just put them in the comment section down there below. Please hit like and subscribe and all that jazz, and I hope you enjoyed that. And like I said, any questions you want to ask me about the rigs and techniques and tackle I use, please do so. Get out there on the rocks, don't use yellow balloon. If you want to jig yourselves, I think it's a whole banana thing or what have you, but I've never, ever, ever hooked a longtail on a yellow balloon. When I get my balloons, I take the yellow ones out and flick it at the dog, but I flick myself. Got the dog. Righto, that's it. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next episode. Bye for now.